Welcome back to Black Fathers Foundation. Political pops is our topic today. My name is Barry J, and we are going to get into it. Listen, folks, it's been a 2020 was a real year, and we've headed into 2021, and we've seen some crazy things started off. So some people really like, did the year really start over, or are we really into a new year? But political pops is something I've been gnawing at the bit to talk about. We have some amazing panelists today, and we're going to get into some things. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about some things that we've been talking about at home and between Zoom meetings. So let me introduce TJ Smith. Is a retired Anne Arundel County Police Commander, former chief spokesman for the Baltimore Police Department, former press secretary for Baltimore County Executive Johnny Ozeski Jr., and a former candidate for mayor of Baltimore. He's also the father of an 8-year-old young gentleman by the name of Kai. Thanks, TJ, for coming on board with us, brother.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Our second panelist, Senator Cory McCray, was elected to represent the 45th Legislative District in the Maryland State Senate in 2018. Since that time, he's been named legislator to watch by the Daily Record and Maryland Matters. I want to thank you very much, Senator, for coming on board with us this evening.
I appreciate the opportunity, Barry.
It was my pleasure, my pleasure. And last but certainly not least, Marques Dent, a true community advocate. In 2011, Marques founded the Dent Group, DENT, delivering educational needs together. This program originally was solely offered at the Oliver Community Center and has grown across the city. Marques, thank you very much for joining us tonight, guys.
Thank you. Such a blessing to be here today with these fine gentlemen.
Hey, go ahead, brother. Go ahead. You're putting a smile on my face, man. Look, I'm just happy to see some other people on Zoom or on the normal crew, you know? So first, I got to get into this. And I'm going to start off with something that I know is kind of personal to me. All of you have looked at and felt politics in some capacity. What was the thing that made you push towards public service? And I want to start off with you first, Senator.
I always tell folks that I looked at politics the same way a lot of young people look at it. I look at it as they leave me alone, I leave them alone. But the reality is that you realize that politics is intertwined in everything that we do, whether your streets get repaved or whether they have potholes in them, whether the BG lights go out and you call your council person, your state senator, state delegates, they come back on in 2 days or 2 weeks. That's political, depending on the representation. What our schools look like from K through 12, that's political. What our higher education institutions look like. These are all political decisions, and we cannot sit on the sideline when folks are making these decisions because they'll make them without us. The question that you ask is, when did I realize from a political standpoint? I think I was about 25, 26 years of age. And just for folks know, I'm born and raised in the city of Baltimore. I went through a 5-year apprenticeship program with the IBW. Been buying houses up and down Bel Air Road since I was 20 years of age. But the reality is, Barry, is that I've realized that I'm blessed. And it's not about what you do for yourself, but how many people you can carry across that finish line with you. And politics is one of the vehicles. While capital is a very important vehicle to do that, political decisions that are being made on the local, state, and federal level are equally as important. Thank you.
Excellent. TJ, let me hear yours.
So I've been a lifelong public servant and have had the opportunity to be intertwined in a bunch of different things, from the political sphere to the public service sphere. And, you know, obviously I didn't get involved in the whole political realm until much later. But being in the room multiple times and seeing some of the people who make the decisions, kind of like Senator McCray said, you see that these are the people that are driving decisions that influence your everyday life. And as many people sit back and they want things to happen, and I'm not one of those people who says, oh, you're sitting on the sideline. Everything isn't for everyone. You feel like you can have an influence, and you feel like you can be that voice that can come in the room and shake things up. And every now and again, we see politics needs a shakeup. And that was one of the reasons that I got involved. I don't feel the need to be an elected official to really do public service, but sometimes you feel like that's the step that you have to take. And, you know, I'm a man of faith, and God doesn't put anything on your shoulders that you can't bear. And some days I do question God, why me? but that's the role that we've been selected for.
Excellent, excellent. Marques, wrap us up.
Sure thing. I'm the son of an educator, born and raised in East Baltimore, and Senator McCray will definitely appreciate this. I first dabbled into politics when we were knocking doors for the late great Nina Harper, Delegate Nina Harper. She had the yellow shirts with the black letters, and they used to have the campaign meetings in our basement at my mother's house off of Tivoli. That was my first little taste of politics, but I've always had the itch for public service. I started a nonprofit when I was 11 years old at my school, and from there, I went to the military and served our great country, served President Barack Obama, worked at the Pentagon. Again, started the Dent Group, delivering educational needs together right in my community, the Oliver community. And things have just sprawled from there, where it's about not only being a part of the conversation, but being a part of the solution. So politics can take a lot of different angles, a lot of different roads, but ultimately you want to make sure you're part of the solution and not a part of the problem. And you could be a painter, you could be a barber, you could be a school teacher, but again, you need to have proper representation. Otherwise, you'll never be heard, and that has a political flavor to it. So throughout my career, serving people, helping people, I've really focused on our youth, because I was once a young person and recreational sports were my thing. So I coach many of the kids in East Baltimore, baseball, basketball, and I just want to make sure I can continue to not only be a mentor in the lives of our next generation, but also an advocate to make sure that they know how to lead once they have their seats at the table. And oftentimes politics is that vehicle to make sure that they can have that seat at the table. Not only just understanding the process, but participating in the process is just as important. Thank you.
I appreciate that, man. You wrapped that up wonderfully. And TJ, you brought up something that I really wanted to make sure we dug into and unpacked a little bit, because you used the word or the phrase shake up. Now, we've had 4 years of shaking up. Now, honestly, personally, I'm ready to get back to like regular boring politics. But I want each of you to talk to me a little bit about what you see as a true shakeup. And since TJ, you started off with it, I want to start with you, and then Senator would be second, and then Marques third.
Well, I think when you look at it, some people, I don't believe politician is a career. If this is a job that you went into at 18, 21, and you've been an elected official for 20, 30 years, my personal opinion is that you might be a little bit disconnected from regular people problems today. And I hear that, and I've heard that a lot. And I think that's where some of the faith in politics itself. And again, when I say shakeup, sometimes you go from a different leadership angle to go into elected service and shake up things and bring different and new ideas to the table, and then you move on out. I feel like when you have, let's be candid here. Senator McCray was part of a shakeup. There have been an entrenched group of people and there was a need to start moving along in a different direction. And I think that's the reality of the shakeup that sometimes is necessary, whether it's hitting the reset button or what have you. And I don't want to call any individuals out, but I can remember growing up in Northwest Baltimore back when the elected officials, when we had 3 people in the districts or what have you, and they would work on a slate and they would come around with the bullhorns and the vans. And I ended up, working alongside a couple of those people, and I'm 43. And I was a kid, who and it's like, how connected can you truly be, or are you at a point where you're complacent? And it doesn't mean that it's a lack of service. It just means you're kind of just moving along. You're at a point where you're complacent and you don't really look at things differently because the way you've been doing it's been working for you for the last number of years. So again, that's my personal opinion. And I think that's what people look for when they look for change.
Excellent. Senator.
Yep. I think that just to bring it in perspective. So I've got my training wheels in the House of Delegates, and I'm currently in the Maryland State Senate. When I ran for the House of Delegates, as TJ stated, there are these things called tickets. So I wasn't on anyone's ticket, and we ended up coming the third place out of the 1 out of 3 places for the House of Delegates. And one of the greatest assets that you have, Barry, is you have time. So what do we do with that time? I think that each and every gentleman in their own respects or have a certain amount of talent. These are talented individuals that I get to share the space with at this moment. But like my thing is that I know I have a certain skills and talent. I know that I'm in some of my prime years in life. And if I cannot contribute from a time standpoint, or I'm just contributing to what already exists and what I'm trying to change, I don't want to share that space. So I think that everyone goes in with the right intentions. And as TJ stated, sometimes you just stay a little bit too long. There are some that have been there for 20, 30 years, and sometimes they can outrun some of these young people that's in elected office. So I want to acknowledge that piece of it too. But once you lose that passion and can no longer move at the pace that you need to move at, especially for the city of Baltimore, who faces a clear set of unique challenges around education, crime, transportation, and these various sets of things, you have to make sure that you get out the way and make room for those that can do. It's no disrespect to them folks, because they also contributed too, and we need to make sure that we acknowledge that. But you have to make sure that we don't have the luxury of just sitting anybody in there and being a placeholder at the moment. We need everybody moving full steam ahead and moving on all cylinders.
Excellent. Marques.
I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to go from a passion perspective. Everybody that's currently involved has at some point had a passion to fulfill their purpose in the political arena. Once that light starts to dim, once that fire in your belly is no longer the thing that gets you up in the morning and gets you to Annapolis or gets you to City Hall or gets you back into the streets to make sure that the basic needs are met, once that starts to waver, you need to make the personal decision to start mentorship, training, get the next group ready. And a lot of that comes from my military background. We're not here for a long time, but we got to make sure while we're here, we do what we need to do to set everyone up for the future. Like Senator McCray said, did it without a ticket. Oh, well, got a group of friends. Let's go hit it, see what we can do. And a lot of that blueprint has been replicated, tried to be duplicated, but it can't. It can't, because a lot of people don't have that passion and that fire in their belly. And that's the thing that a lot of our political leaders need. And we've been in a state of flux for the last 4 years, nationally and locally, to speak of. And now it's all of our responsibilities to make sure that we're all set up for the future in the right way. And again, if you don't have that fire in your belly anymore, you need to do everyone a favor and start working on the next generation. Groom somebody, or no, groom several people to come in and start living in their purpose like you have.
And Marques, thank you for bringing that up, because that kind of segues into one of my next questions. And you said that word passion, and I'll tell you right off the bat, for me, the Democratic Party hasn't been passionate since Obama. It was like there was something, just the way the brother spoke, the way he just conveyed information. It was just like you wanted to be part of it, and I feel like we lost that, obviously, but the other side picked up on that passion and they ran with it. What do you think we need nationally? And let me preface it with this. Stacey Abrams was just nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm sending her lots of love, because that's just what she did. Was she handed Georgia over. I mean, she delivered Georgia, her and her team. That was passionate. I don't know if she'd have had the same power if she'd actually gotten elected to the office she was running for personally, but I'm this is me just talking. But what passion do you think we need to start bringing into our politics to grab and pull more people in? And let me start with the senator first, then TJ, then Marques.
Thank you, Barry. I think it's a great question, and I think I play a number of roles, Barry. So I'm also going to say as the first vice chair of the Maryland Democratic Party. So I serve as the number 2 of the Maryland Democratic Party. But one of the reasons why I'm in office, I'm blessed to have a wife, 4 kids, Kennedy, Reagan, CJ, and Bryson. As stated, good job, good investments, and things of that nature. But one of the things that I see in reference to our political system is just a broken system that's don't know how to get back to the basics. And one of the things that I think that how you get people involved is when they have an issue, you're responsive to their issue. Folks are apathetic because they can't see how government works for them. But the reality is that we all pay taxes, Barry. So one of the things is that each and every email I check myself, because I think that people deserve that response. I can't check my phones, but I do look at each and every email that comes across my desk. Not only do we just pass it off to the local government or federal government and say that it's their problem, we work with them and in concert with them, and then we follow up. So in 3 to 5 days, each and every local agency know that Cory McCray is going to be following up with them for their constituents. I think that when you deliver for the constituents, whether it's even the most basic need, that's how we get them to believe in the system again. I just don't think that they see where they're getting their money's worth, and they just disengage themselves from the process. While that isn't the strongest passion, I think that all you got to do is do the basics. That's the foundation. If the foundation is broken, I think it's tough for people to be engaged in something that they can see is falling apart. Just in general, my passion, I think that mine's come from because I love this city. I think that I've had a different set of experiences than the folks that I serve with, where I saw one side of it and I've been able to live it and see what that looks like. But the reality is this next generation of young people is who we need to be thinking about. So each and every day that I wake up, I'm thinking about that next generation and how can I contribute to that? And that's where that's what drives me, and that's where the passion comes from. Thank you.
I heard it, brother. I heard it. TJ.
So I think nationally, as much as I love and appreciate Barack Obama, going to Marcus's point, the next generation of leadership wasn't cultivated under his leadership and his tenure. We can't have this next up mentality and who's up next, wait your turn, because no offense, but that's how we ended up with Hillary Clinton, and the Republican Party ended up with who they ended up with. And we had to have this reset. Arguably, Joe Biden is the best candidate to be president of the United States right now, and he was just the best candidate positioned to beat Donald Trump. And you look at the fact that we have a 78-year-old man in elected office right now. It's just incomprehensible if anyone thinks about their own mother or grandmother or anyone doing a job like that, the most stressful job in the world at that age. But you go back to that passion of that next crop of people. Now you do have some opportunists as part of that come in, and that makes it also difficult. You know, and where you draw your passion from. Is it because you want to be seen, you want to see your name in the lights, you want to have this celebrity type aura, or do you really want to work and you really want to sometimes piss off people? Because that's the reality as well of being a change agent. Not everyone's going to like what you do. So you know, there's a lot in me that I've seen over the years that just has driven me into service of helping people in general. And I think, you know, again, everything isn't for everyone. It just comes naturally. You find yourself just doing things, and that's just what you do. And, you know, it's like not even a big deal. You don't look at yourself like, oh, what am I going to do to serve today? You just do it. And more service-minded people don't have to feel like they have to be pushed into a role. You just ascend into it naturally because of your leadership abilities, and you're sought out in a lot of ways. So I hope that we can see the Democratic Party getting more energized, and I feel like Joe Biden and you know, I love Joe, but I feel like he surrounded himself with good crops of other people that are going to be the future of the Democratic Party, and that's what's necessary to cultivate that future leadership.
Love it, love it, love it. Marques, bring us home, brother.
Burr, you got me feeling like Bernie Mac, but I love it. We talk about passion, but as we unpack passion, we have to unpack access. A lot of our people in and around our city, state, and country don't have access to the same things that you and I may have access to. Don't have access to the educational tools. Don't have access to the technological tools. Don't have access to the basic needs, like Senator McCray said, that all of us should be entitled to and that we've earned because we're taxpayers. Um, at the end of the day, when we look for leadership, when we look for that voice to really get out there and energize us all, a lot of that has to come from within. But it doesn't come from within without having access uh, as a young person or person in the community to understand what's going on in and around uh, the city. You know, we look at going to the movies, going skating, some of those basic entertainment things, logging into class right now with COVID. A lot of folks still can't do it. A lot of folks still don't have that opportunity. And if we don't start on the ground level, we can't even start to think about the national level. If we can't take care of home, if I still have people on Biddle Street who still have snow from last week, that's not the case. But if that was the case, that's a problem. That's a problem. So we have to think about our neighbors first, and then we can think about national second. Because as we galvanize the community, as we get into the homes of the folks that live in and around us, then and only then will that passion come out because they now have access and feel like they have a seat at the table and a voice.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Marques. And I just want you to know I'm switch it up. So, Marques, this next question is coming to you first. But one of you mentioned it earlier: politics as a career. And I know I've had discussions with my friends and family, and I've always felt like that you shouldn't hold a certain role for X amount of time. And same way you only get 2 terms as a president. You know, there are some people that are in a role for the last 20, 30 years, you know. So to me, and I personally don't like it, just because I'm like, if you're stuck in a space for so long that at some point you just become numb to everything around you, and you're not doing maybe the best job. So from your point of view, start off with you first, Marques, and then the senator second, and then TJ, you bring it home. How do you think, or do you think we should keep the terms the same, especially at local and also the national level, or should we have political careers in the same position?
100% in favor of term limits. And the reason I'm in favor of term limits, because like any job, you grow. You grow. Should you be a delegate forever? No. Guess what? You've outgrown delegate. Now you're senator. Should you be a council person forever? No. You've outgrown being a council person. You used to be council president, mayor. So in most careers, you're not going to be the secretary forever. Eventually, you're going to be the executive administrative assistant. Or eventually in the police department, you're going to make lieutenant, major, or detective, whatever route you take. So again, if we look at politics as just purely a job, you should want career progression. So you should not want to be in the same position for 30 years. That shows no career progression personally. Now, on the flip side of things, from a public service perspective, the needs of our people change almost daily. So the same way you're going to upgrade your computer every 3 years, you should upgrade the talent that's representing you on a term limit. Because at the end of the day, your needs are going to change. And our people put us in positions that they need us in. I could want to be a congressman all day, but if you want me to be your basketball coach and your mentor, that's what I'm going to be until this happens. So we need to make sure our people are pushing us to be our best selves for them at all times.
Excellent. Senator.
Barry, thank you for the question. I think that this is something where I've given a lot of thought to. So especially being and working on a number of political campaigns within the city of Baltimore. So one of the things that I think about, and I'll start with this. I think that the majority of folks that are probably holding the seats for 20 or 30 years, it's a level of comfort that shouldn't be. But I also want to acknowledge that one of the people that I really respected was a councilwoman. She just retired, Councilwoman Mary Pat Club. So when I look at some of my tough communities, such as Darley Park, and who was actually walking in some of these tough alleys on the streets, it was Mary Pat Clark putting in footwork. I didn't see a lot of these young folks that's doing the same thing or implementing. And she was one of the type people, they old school. They pick the phone up and call you. They want to make sure that you do it yourself. And those are some of the practices that should be remembered. Some of these young folks ain't doing that. So I just want to be clear in that you need that hand to hand, you need that person to person, and that is very important. And that's what I've seen, but I've also tried to duplicate that in my behavior. The other piece is when I think of term limits, I also don't want to lose the subject matter expertise piece of it. So when I look at some of the other jurisdictions or some of the other states that do have term limits, I think about the people that's running it are pretty much staffers and lobbyists, because if you're switching everybody out every 2 terms, you may get 4 years, you may get 8 years. What happens is that subject matter expertise is now leaving us. So I do think that the term limits are the elections per se, but I also know how tough it is to cut through. So cutting through is not an easy thing from there. But I do think that there's some form of a balance that's needed in that specific arena. So I think that I'm in the middle, but clear, I'm not there on the term limits yet. But I do think that, especially in the space that I share, it takes you almost 2 or 3 years just to learn some of these subjects. These are big subject matters from a transportation, from an education, from a K through 12, from a workforce standpoint. This isn't just something that you come in and you know tomorrow. These are things that people have worked on for a significant amount of time, and we should still be respectful of that. I do 45 minutes with the Department of Secretary of Transportation, Greg Slater, just because there are too many big. This is a $49 billion budget for the state of Maryland. This isn't something that you could just kind of come in, and most of these folks don't even get their training wheels, and it's been 4 years. So you need to it should be recognized that there's a certain amount of time that it takes just for you to be able to learn the respective craft.
Thank you for that perspective, Senator. Appreciate it. TJ.
I think I think Senator McCray would be a subject matter expert that we would tap into to understand how long it takes to learn and what that looks like. And I think there's some happy medium with term limits. If you just look at, let's say, the city council, for instance, if you had 3 years that you could be a city council person in this particular district, and then you were forced to either move on or run for city council president, maybe that can force you to really be hungry and go after it longer if that's what you want to do for a career. I just think that if you're in one particular job and one particular community for too long as an elected official, it becomes the complacency. And Senator McCray mentioned how it is hard to cut through. When you do become that institution, you pretty much have the bank accounts on lock of everybody who's going to fund your campaign. So you become almost unbeatable at that point. And it does take some beating down the doors and everything else in order to get to that point. But I'm big on complacency. And again, Senator McCray is an electrician by trade, and he's had a career prior to being a politician. If your career is being a politician, I just think that it would behoove you to be able to see things other than just that, so that you can understand other people's plight a little bit more. So just the relatability. And I think that just makes for a better, system. And I think everybody can have a lot of great things to say about our late Speaker of the House and leader, Senate leader. But I mean, they were in the House and the Senate respectively for basically longer than I've been alive. And a lot's changed. I mean, we went from, call waiting on your house phone to, cell phones. So much has changed. And I just don't know how much can be lost in that period of time. There's a kid right now that is identifying problems in school that I didn't deal with that's going to make for a very good delegate in another 4 to 5 years to fix some of those problems that we never knew existed during our tenure in school. So change is good, and wholesale change is sometimes good. But to the point that Senator McCray made, that institutional knowledge is also significant. And real quick, as I wrap this up, in law enforcement, over the years, they had something in Baltimore police homicide where they were going to rotate homicide detectives every 3 years. And when you remove that institutional knowledge, you think that you're solving a problem, but you're creating another one. So it's important to have that 20, 30-year veteran sometimes that you can look to that really gets it. And the same can be said for politics. So I think there's a happy median to try to make sure people don't get complacent and end up in these positions for way too long.
Excellent. That's a great wrap up, TJ. So now I'm going to switch gears completely now. So completely, I'm about to throw y'all a curveball because this actually happened in my household. You're all fathers, so let's say, and I believe all of you, all of us have some young children. So I'm gonna say it's 20 years from now, and you have your political party, but your child chooses a different political party. How is that conversation going when they're ready to go vote? I'm gonna start with you first, Senator, then TJ, and then Marques. You're gonna be Bernie Mac and bring it home for us, brother.
Hey Barry, you swinging my way first a lot of times. but so I'm gonna speak as a father of four. I got a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And because of the proximity that I am at this moment in reference to state government, my kids follow it pretty close, per se. So they're very in tune, especially the 11 and the 13-year-old. And I think that obviously they have their own mind, they have their own ideas and things of that nature, and we should embrace that piece of it. But I think that just from the proximity of who they're interacting with from a standpoint, I think that they're probably going to follow very closely aligned with their parents. And I think that's just in general, from a dad to your child. They're going to model you. You're going to look at, they walk like you walk, they talk like you talk, so they share some of those same things. And I think that all of us have really good relationships, not just with kids in our neighborhoods, but especially within our household. And I do think that my kids will follow the same trajectory.
Are you willing that? Are you willing that right now? Good enough. Who's that? TJ.
So, my son is a very smart young man, and, he picks up on things, and I think he will be a good decision maker, and he's going to vote for the person who best represents his values, his community values, and what that means going forward. So I would support him. I mean, now if 20 years from now he said I'm voting for Ivanka Trump, then get the hell out of my house. But short of that, he would need to make a very compelling argument to me for that. But I think that he sees things, and I'll tell a quick story on that. When Trump was first elected, as he was going through the process, I knew who he was. I tried to respect the office of the presidency, and I tried to have my child respect the office of the presidency. When my child has to ask me why he's being so mean, all bets are off at that point. So then we had to talk about who this man really is and what he does. So it's things like that he picks up on at this age. And you think he's 8 now. This is 5 years ago, that he was picking up on how nasty of an individual the former president was. So I think he's going to have the smarts enough to make the right decisions about who could be a good steward for the population. So I would support him as long as, those kids' names didn't end with Trump or anything.
Thank you, TJ. You was sticking real political there for a second. You was right in the middle. You finally went there. Okay, I appreciate it. Marques, bring us home, brother. What happens to you, man? 20 years from now.
Senator McCray came on a few seconds after us. We had this conversation off air. You know who I feed in my house? They eat my food. I'm gonna dive into it a little bit, but you understand that answer. Again, my mother and father are lifelong Democrats. Voted for the first time at Maryville with them. I flew home from college in Tennessee just to vote and flew right back because I got one of those funky September birthdays where I had to register and come back and X, Y, and Z. But I got two 18-year-olds, and both of them are registered 45th District Democrats. Um, I got a 15-year-old, and she comes out to do turkeys or whatever I'm doing that day. I have an 11-year-old. He comes out to take the pictures for me.
Everybody working, huh?
I got a 7-year-old, and he is watching CNN all day. So in our household, we're committed not only to the democratic process, but also to making sure everybody has a better day in the community. And that starts and ends with community service. That starts and ends with passion. And that starts and ends with making sure we're all aligned. I saw a post on Facebook about 2 weeks ago about how you pick your mate. And I commented. I said, she got to support the Ravens and be a Democrat. I don't care if she can cook. And I mean that wholeheartedly. As Baltimore as they come, and I have a particular belief system as far as service is concerned. Again, former military. All I know is service. All I know is helping people. So the folks that are in and around me, they're automatically part of that conversation. And like Senator McCray said, you see the picture in the background. Everybody's rocking and rolling the same way.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. All right, so that's the perfect segue into my next question. And this has been this is my household, so I don't know if anyone else has these type of households, but I've actually watched a couple of shows. I've seen a couple of other panels. I've seen this actual debate in the hip hop world. Black conservatives and the thought process behind this is the route I'm choosing. Now, I know I know who I'm dealing with. I know who I'm talking to, but I'm just curious from my perspective. When you hear someone and they walk up and they say, "I'm a black conservative," what's one of your first thoughts? And I'm gonna switch it up. This time. I'm going to TJ first, Marcus second. I'm gonna get a Senator break, and I'm gonna let you bring it home, brother.
Well, some of them are just trying to be provocative. Some of the nonsense we've seen, and I'm not going to name any names because I have friends all over the place. But some of them, and you know who they are, they're just being provocative. It's silly. It's a caricature, is what it is, of nonsense. And I don't have time for the stupidity. What does that mean? To throw your shoulders out and your chest out? I'm a conservative black. What does that mean? Tell me what that means. If you're going to mimic the stupidity of this last administration federally that we had, then I really don't have a whole lot to hear or say to you because I can't subscribe to that. There's a way that we can have those discussions without being so brash and so abrasive to people and turning our nose up to people and turning our nose up to some of the foundational issues that have caused some of the problems that exist in our urban centers. And so what does that mean? Are you conservative because you don't think money should be spent in such a way? Are you conservative because you think that women shouldn't have a choice? Are you conservative because you think that it should be really a black and white justice system? I just think that when you beat to that same drum and you really can't expound upon it, you're not an individual, you're part of a gang. So that's just not how I beat. And now I'm probably going to sound like one of these people. I'm a moderate. I'm probably the most moderate of the three of us up here, where I'm more in the middle on some things than I am on the left of some things. But I think a lot of people are like that, quite honestly. But using this muscle of I'm a conservative, to me, especially over the last 4 years, is more of a bully tactic. Like they're trying to scare you or something. And I just looked at you like maybe you're just not that bright. quite honestly. And I'm just being frank here. I could be frank. I'm not an elected official, but
There you go. There you go.
it's I think it's a bully mentality. Like, you're coming at me like, what does that mean? I'm a black conservative. I mean, you see what Van Jones is getting because he didn't know what side of the fence he wanted to be on. I saw a reporter today, and I'll say her name because we don't have any personal relationships, but Yamiche Alcindor asked a question of the press secretary today about Joe Biden and bringing together the party. He's talking about unity, and these are the things he did. Is that unity? What? No, he won the election. That's the agenda that he can put forth. Now, unity has to be a gap that's bridged. And if the Republicans aren't moving towards bridging that gap, they can't have their way because they didn't win the election. And that's what the people chose. So, yeah, all of that nonsense. We just have to be, I don't, the black conservative, I think there are some true black conservatives that can give you a really good reason for where they are. And they can tell you, well, I think that we can do X, Y, Z. And they don't have to have this bravado that some of these other ones, like the Candace Owens and some of those folks have.
Appreciate that, TJ, and your candor because you're not an elected official. Marcus.
I love TJ. He says, well, others can't. I'm from East Baltimore, and I went to St. Paul School for Boys in Brooklynville, Maryland. My graduating high school class, it was 7 African Americans out of 81 students. I went to the military, which is, I don't know the exact numbers, so don't quote me, 60, 70% non-African American. So I've been in and around conservatives my whole life. And when we talk about black conservatives, I look at it like this. What we experienced the last 4 years was hatred, divisiveness. We can just go to the mean-spirited, no compassion. I've seen in a lot of other states I've traveled to, be kind, the Be Kind campaign. We need to find that humanity in each other where, regardless of left, right, center, you're a human being. And you understand that if someone differs in opinion, they're a human being as well. TJ really unpacked it from a non-political standpoint, saying, some people are just dumb. But I'll take it a step further. Some people are just hateful. And that even goes to self-hate when we talk about black conservatives. How in today's society, yesterday's society, the society before that, the root society, whatever society you subscribe to, can you ever justify that kind of hatred or divisiveness and be a part of it? I would question your sanity as well. From a political standpoint, I would look at it like this. We all have a right to our own opinion. And as a veteran, I always respect the office of everyone that is elected. And I will continue to do that forever. But personally, I can feel how I want to about you. And I will not subscribe to anything that's divisive, anything that's hate-filled. And to me, I see a lot of the folks that went that way, especially the last 4 years, were supporting hate and division as a human, from a human standpoint, not just a political standpoint. And that's insanity. Now you have America looking crazy, looking outright foolish. And we got to spend, like Senator McCray, we got to spend time to learn and regroup and learn how to do things again. Otherwise, other countries are laughing at us.
Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you. Senator, wrap us up, brother.
No problem, Barry. I just, a lot of times I'll go back towards time. And I said this a little bit earlier, and how I spend my time is very important to me. In the space that I'm in at this moment, I try to work with everybody to figure out, especially because of the unique challenges, a set of challenges that are in front of us at this moment, conservative, moderate, progressive, whoever it is, trying to figure out like what's the solution. So I try my best not to get distracted from a standpoint of if someone's talking nonsense or they just can't get with where we're at. But I also want to acknowledge like there are some black conservatives that supported Trump or anything, but black conservatives that I also look at as leaders too. So I'll throw some out there. Colin Powell is one of the ones. I've read several of his books and really admire that good brother. And I think he's a very strong leader. Condoleezza Rice. I bought my daughter a book about Condoleezza Rice because I think she has a unique childhood and has contributed a great. So they have different political views than I have, but just from an African American standpoint, I think it is important for my kids to know who these individuals are and the contributions that they made to our country from a space like that. So I think that as TJ and Marcus, I don't subscribe to the foolishness or the stupidity of what folks may say, but I also think that in the space that I share too, I need to figure out Annapolis is not like DC. So Annapolis is not like DC. We figure out where's the middle at. We respect if there is no middle, and you figure out how you get that ball up that field for your people that you represent.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate your candor and your honesty. And we're going to wrap this up, but I want to, my final question to you. And it really comes down to accountability. And how do we hold and I'm going local here because I'm dealing with the local politics now. How do we hold our local politicians accountable for their actions, good or bad? Just how do we do that? And I'm going to Marcus first, TJ second, and Senator, you're going to bring us home, brother.
When you go to the ballot box or whatever we're going to have since COVID, and you write that person's name down because they sent things to your house or they talked to you personally, once they're in the seat, whatever they had on that literature, whatever they said to your face, make them do it. Make them do it.
Now, let me just ask you, how does that work? How do you make them do it? Because I know for me. You're gonna get me. Okay,
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you. And the thing is, and I'm a very spoiled resident of the 45th district. I text my senator, he texts me back. It's the most amazing thing, I swear. It's the most amazing thing ever. But I respect his time, his position, his office, and him as a man and a family man. But if I have a question, he answers it immediately. My council person answers immediately. My mayor answers immediately. Email, text, whatever form of communication. For me, that's the most direct way to hold our elected officials accountable. You contact them about whatever the issue is. Give them an opportunity to respond. And also understand they may not say what you want. They may not be able to do what you asked for. But if they respond and respect you as a person that put them in office, that's the fundamentals of democracy. Senator McCray can have $1 million? No. You crazy? But I got these scholarships coming out, and I know you got a bunch of 18-year-olds, so we can talk about that. So the thing is, also as residents, understand who does what. Senator McCray can't fix my lights, but Councilman Stokes can. Understand who does what and who can get you where. And a lot of our elected officials, especially in our district in East Baltimore, if they can't do it at a minimum, they point you in the right direction. And for me, that's an amazing trait. That's an amazing service that they're providing. And understanding their calendars and that voter education is very important. And in my role in the Central Committee, that's what I do. Voter education, voter registration, understand who to call for what. Hey, if you call me, I can text the senator and see what's going on and come back to you with an answer. You text me, I can text the council person, come back with an answer. Or understand, hey, everybody's in session right now. They'll be putting a few things out, but they are very, very busy. So this particular issue may have to wait just a little bit until they get out of session and they can give you that nice face-to-face contact. But at the end of the day, that's the crux of things as far as accountability for me, is making sure you have that responsiveness and commitment of what they said they were going to do from day one.
Excellent. Thank you, Marques. TJ.
So I think it's tempering your expectations. I mean, and having realistic expectations of what you anticipate from your elected official. You know, it's asinine. I learned a great deal working with Johnny Oshetsky in Baltimore County when we had budget town halls. I thought it was brilliant to go around the entire county and letting people say what they wanted. It was so great, especially as a press secretary at that point, where we had people who were from both parties saying, we want better schools, we want more parks, we want better roads, we want more sidewalks, raise my taxes if you're able to do those things. I'm good with you raising my taxes. Honesty is a big deal. Tell the truth to people. I think people, if you can tell them, I can do this or I can't. But it's also incumbent upon people to be smart. Kind of weaving in the Black conservative thing. This Black female conservative approached me one day about 2 years ago when the whole Elijah Cummings and trash in the 7th Congressional District were going on, and she's going off about it. I mean, all the trash in the district. I said, who's your state representative in that district? She couldn't tell me. I said, who's your council person? She couldn't tell me. I said, why the hell you think a federal congressperson should be concerned about the trash in your district, and you haven't even gone up the ladder yet of knowing who is locally responsible? So it's also incumbent upon us as citizens to understand the role of the elected official. We can't dumb ourselves down that much that we think just because you're an elected official that you're going to solve all of life's problems and you don't have a clue of how a bill becomes a law. You know, so I think that when we talk about accountability, what is your standard? And if you didn't support that person, again, don't throw everything on them like Joe Biden. You said you were going to make this Democrat and Republican. No. I said I'm going to work towards unifying the country. And if you didn't support this person becoming whatever the elected title is that they have, again, temper your expectations, because you didn't get who you wanted, who was going to sell you a bunch of dreams and fulfill or not. Temper your expectations and have realistic expectations. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Let's be real. And here's the other one. Ask a simple question to that elected official. How can I help you achieve that?
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Barry. Just I want to hone in on a couple things. One of them is please send emails. So the reason why I check my own emails, because I want to have a pulse, especially when we're dealing with very controversial issues and things of that nature. So not only is it an email as a vehicle for constituent stuff, but just to get a pulse of where folks are on issues. The second one is please make the phone calls. Please request a meeting. I try my best to meet with everyone that I physically can. And it's usually not challenging during the 9 months. It's only probably challenging when we're in session to make sure that I accommodate the meetings. I think that we also have to know how to use the bully pulpit. So as community leaders or folks inside of the community, you have the ability to gather other folks and make sure that you can kind of convene and say, hey, I would like to speak to my council person. I want to speak to my senator, my delegates. And if there's enough people there, your congressional reps and your federal reps. The other thing that I just want to say is vote. So one of the things is that politicians say they pay attention to everybody. That's not true. They pay attention to people that vote and neighborhoods that vote. So when you look at a lot of the statewide, citywide positions and where they focus at and the areas that they focus at, those are places that traditionally have a high percentage rate of just voting. So I'll reiterate the emails, the phone calls, the gatherings of the communities. But I also want to say that people have a responsibility to also be vested in these respective campaigns. We're not looking for $500, $250, $1,000. I respect people that donate $5, and that more than likely means a lot more to me than the $250 or the $500 first, because they're vested and you know that they're going to be supporting you because they did their money. Second, they might not even had that $5 to donate to you, and they still made sure that they put something in to that respective campaign. The other piece is, Barry, and I want to lean into this one, is when I was growing up in the city, went to public schools, I just remember our mayor, Kurt Smoke, and I remember Lawrence Bell. They had a very strong presence in our schools. So one of the things that our educators, to any educator that's listening at this moment, I stay in my schools once a week. I'm in someone's school at that point in time, because we're doubling down on the next generation when we put that effort out. And when TJ talked about the people not knowing who their council people is, people not knowing who their state reps is, our young people know, because that's the things that I quiz them on when I make sure that I'm speaking before their class from that standpoint. So that's a couple things that could be done, but I think that we have an extra responsibility to make sure that these the next generations and the ones after that know their civic responsibility. I'm gonna lean in one more time, then I'm gonna close my mouth. A lot of times, and I love that one of our young people as city neighbors was facing eviction at that point. Her mom didn't know who to call, but she knew who to call. And she knew how to get to that over to get me to connect them with Baltimore City Housing to address this respective issue. So our young people are paying attention, and that's where we want to make sure that we stay close proximity to them, because they can help with a lot of the issues that we have. Thank you for this opportunity, Barry.
Oh man, love it. Thank you for closing us out like that, because that was on point. And gentlemen, I want to say thank you very much for being part of this conversation. Thank you for being part of this panel. Thank you for your insight and your candor. This is something that we need. This is, for me, the grassroots of how we get more people engaged. Keep doing what you're doing, gentlemen. Thank you very much. You've been tuning in to another Foundation conversation with the Black Fathers Foundation, and be sure to check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're all over the place. Thanks to our special person in charge, G. And a special thank you to Matt and Kelly, who run pretty much everything with us and for us and help us through this process. And again, thank you very much, gentlemen. Hold on whilst we close out. We appreciate you. Thanks for